ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for our webinar. Today we're going to be discussing a master's degree for modern professionals. So my name is Kat. I'm the Assistant Director for the Graduate and Online Programs here at McGeorge. And with me today is one of our current MSL students, Nancy Beecher. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy.
Of course.
So just real quick, so we just did introductions, and then we're going to do a little Q&A with Nancy just to kind of give you guys some insight into what our program is like for a current student and just kind of how she's using it in her professional role and just a little bit about her opinion and what she enjoys about the program. Then we're going to do just a brief overview of our MSL concentrations and a little bit about what makes our program unique. Next steps is just going to be if you're interested in applying, kind of what you need to do to go about that, because our application is still available for January start. And then we'll do a Q&A. So if you have any questions for me or for Nancy, you can either put them in the chat or in the Q&A option. If you want to type them in as we're going so you don't forget, that's totally fine too. Okay, so hi, Nancy.
Hi.
So I just kind of have a list of questions that I was going to ask you, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So first, do you want to just give us a little bit of background about you?
Yes, I have a PhD in environmental biology, and I am a senior environmental biologist with the Southern Nevada Water Authority. But I am just one of many MSL students that are quite diverse. You know, a lot of my classmates, some of them are in their 20s, and they got out of college recently, and they're trying to forge a career for themselves. There are students in their 30s that have, you know, young kids, some of them, and they've been in their job for a while, and they're seeing a need to grow in their job. They want to get promoted, or they want to go in a certain direction. And then there's people like me who are a little older. I'm 53. I've made some really good friends who are in their 40s in the program, and we've kind of have our careers established. And for me, I was just looking for something where I could grow and develop and contribute in a different way, and explore new opportunities. So it's quite a diverse program. The diversity is really baked into the cake.
Very cool. Yeah. So, I mean, you talked about like where you are in your life and everything. So can you share a little bit about how you balanced your professional commitment as well as your personal life with the demands of an online MSL program?
Yes. Well, the flexibility of the online program is paramount. I couldn't do it without it. I work full time, and it's usually more than 40 hours a week. Sometimes we have major projects with big deadlines that I have to prioritize. And I also have 2 young teenage kids. So it's a balancing act for sure. The biggest thing is to kind of have a sense of what you want to do each week, what you have to accomplish. When I first started school, I had a conversation with the director, Professor Harder, who's wonderful. All the people at McGeorge are just really great. But one of the pieces of advice she gave us was, don't wait until like the day before things are due. Do it in little chunks every day. If you can do it over lunch or do it in the evening or what have you. So that way you can spread it out. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I got. So if you don't do that, then when the time comes to have things due, you're in trouble. So you really, even if you're not a planner type of person, you really kind of have to plan out your life so you can balance your personal life with your professional life. But it's doable. Not easy, but it's doable. And the one thing I wanted to mention was online, there's recommended courses to take based on what your emphasis is and how many, I think it's like 6 credits a semester is their example, but you don't have to follow that. Some people who might work less or not have kids, they might take three classes a semester, but it's a heavy load, but they could do it. For me, I took 2 classes, 6 credits a semester. But the first 2 semesters, I was really glad to get my requisites out of the way. And then I slowed down to 1 class a semester because I needed to do it for myself and my family. But I'm not in a major rush. I already have a job. So my personal reasons for slowing down are different than someone else in the course. But the point is that you have a lot of flexibility to choose how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you, I mean, you mentioned you have your PhD already. So
Mhm.
what motivated you to do an MSL in water and environmental law, and kind of like how are you using what you learn in your job right now?
Well, I've been in my job for 16 years. I love it. It's really tailored to exactly what I do. I use my education every single day, but I'm not interested in going into management. I want to stay in the technical field, but I'm starting to feel a little stagnant. And I'd also recognize, for me, I'm a biologist at a water authority, and I've been involved with some legal cases. And so I started to recognize how some of the gaps there are with biologists understanding the hydrology and the law, and the lawyers understanding the science. And I wanted to immerse myself in a program where I could speak the other language, where I can communicate what I do to others better, and then they can understand it as well. So I went online and I tried to find an online graduate level program that dealt with water and environmental law, which there's hardly anything out there. And McGeorge really fit the bill. It was really, and I couldn't move because my family's here. So the fact that McGeorge was online was a major factor for me. And I had a conversation with Kat. The very first day I found it online, I thought, I'm going to call someone and ask some questions. And I called Kat, and literally within 30 minutes, she called me back. We had a great conversation. I learned all about the program, and I haven't looked back. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's why I entered the program. And for me, I use what I learn every single day. The very first day that I was in school, the next day I was using what I learned at my job. I couldn't believe it. And I'm not just saying that for real. It actually happened. And I was really floored by that fact. And it's been the case all along. So now I'm at the end of my second year, and I have grown so much by being part of the program. And I apply what I learned at work on a daily basis. And the other thing that's been great is that the professors at McGeorge are all they all practice in their field. So I've had professors who are attorneys. I've had professors that work in the legislature building. I've had professors who are judges, and they bring that real life experience into the class. And that makes a big difference for me as well, because I'm not just getting kind of a theoretical education. I'm also learning how it gets applied out in the real world. And that's the kind of thing you can't just pick up in a book. And it's kind of what has made the MSL program really special for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good to hear. So I mean, you've got a lot going on. What does a typical like week look like? Like, how are you structuring everything you do? Are there tips that you use to like get through your work every week?
Yeah. So aside from, not waiting till the last second, one of the things that I've discovered is it helps a lot to listen to the lectures in my car while I take my kids to school. I commute to work. I pop in, I put my phone on Bluetooth and I listen to the lectures, and I start the modules for every week start at midnight on Sunday. So Monday morning, when I take my child to school, he sets my phone up for me with the Bluetooth. He gets out of the car. I say, see you later, River. And off I go, and I listen to the lecture as I continue to drive. So by the end of Tuesday, I not only have listened to all of the lectures, but I've listened to them twice. And that really helps me think about the material and understand it. So then when I go to actually do the work, I have a sense of what I'm reading, and it makes a lot more sense. And it's been a huge help for me with time management.
Mhm.
And I try very hard not to get behind, because when you get behind, it's tough, because then you have to catch up and do the next week's work. But if you have to, there have been times when I've had to prioritize work. We had something major due, there was a strict deadline, and I had to contact the professor and say, I can't get this in on time. And they say, how much time do you need? And there's usually a date that we have, and then I work to get it done at that point in time. So there is some flexibility built in, because the professors understand a lot of us work or have families. So yeah, I would say those little tips of kind of not getting too far behind, doing a little bit every day, listening to things in the car if you can, they make a huge difference in being able to keep up on a weekly basis.
Mhm. It's really interesting listening to lectures in your car.
Yeah. And I didn't start out that way. My first semester, I didn't. And it was really hard to keep up. And then one day I thought, I'm just going to give it a try. And it was hard at first to take everything in. Like I would listen to a lecture, and then I would go and read something, and I think I didn't learn about that. And I go listen to the lecture, and I think, oh, I missed the whole thing. But so I had to really train my brain to pick stuff up while I was driving and listening. But I've gotten pretty good at it. And so now I listen to the lectures twice, just because the second time around, I can pick up on stuff I missed the first time around, and it gives me time to cogitate. I can really ponder things as I go along. So it's been very helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know you've spoken about this a little bit, but how has the flexibility of the online program specifically supported your work-life balance? I know you talked a little bit about the online portion, but is there anything else about its flexibility that worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me and for a lot of people in the program, they're not willing or able to just pick up and move their whole family or themselves to go to a graduate program. If that's your life and you want to do it, great. I went to grad school before, and that's what I did. I picked up and moved to different states and went to school. But at this phase in my life, I'm not going to uproot my kids just because I want to get more education. So that was having online courses really important for that. I was concerned in the beginning that I wouldn't get much out of it. I thought, I'm not in the classroom with the professors, I'm not interacting, but I've gotten tons out of the program, and it really comes down to you as a student. The other thing I wanted to say was, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I can just say that one of the nice things, I started out by talking about how there's a lot of diversity in the program. People coming from all different ages. When I first started, I thought, I'm going to go to school with all these 20-year-olds, and I'm going to be so old. And it turns out that's not the case at all. I'm probably one of the oldest students, but it really spans the decades, and people are coming from all different walks of life and going into all different types of careers. So that in itself as well has really helped out, because the program is really tailored to fitting in with people's lives, where you're coming from, where you're going, how you need to do your work. I remember what I was going to say. One more thing was that there's flexibility in when you do the work. So if you want to wait till Wednesday to listen to the lectures because you have a really hard schedule Monday, Tuesday, you can. Usually there's discussion perhaps due on Thursday, and you go back and forth with your classmates online, which is really great format to learn and get to know people and get different points of view. But so usually Monday morning, the first thing I do is I look and see what the discussion is on Thursday. So then when I'm reading the lecture or listening to the lectures and starting to do reading, I have in my head, what am I going to talk about? What do I want to pay attention to earlier rather than later? So you really can tailor it to your lifestyle and your schedule.
Yeah, that's really good. So how has the curriculum in your program been relevant and applicable to your current role? I know you said you used it pretty much on your first day of classes, but can you give more specific examples of how that's worked for you?
Yeah, I'm a biologist who works with hydrologists and engineers and managers and lawyers, and it's not just about the science for what I do. And so this program has given me a lot of real life education, understanding how things work out there. So that way, when I do my science, I think about, I used to just think, what's the scientific question? How do I do the proper analysis? How do you do a proper scientific interpretation? Now I think, what's the end game? Where do I need to go? And I use the education I got in the program to help me figure out what questions I'm going to ask, how I'm going to look at the information. And I see it in a whole different light than I used to. And I'm also able to provide insight and information to my managers and my coworkers in ways that I could never do before. So it's really been eye-opening for me.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I think we hear that a lot from students. Like they work in this role where there's kind of a gap between like what they're doing and then what they have to do, like what the attorneys and the judges are doing.
Yes.
And so MSL has kind of allowed them to bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, there's a major gap, and you don't have to just be in science, it could be really any field. If you're not a lawyer, you're not trained, you don't know how to read court cases, you don't know, there could be a word that means something to you, but means something completely different to a lawyer and a judge. And you miss that. And the other way around too, like the lawyers and the judges aren't necessarily going to understand you when you just talk in the jargon of whatever field you're in. And so you kind of miss each other. You're like passing each other in the middle of the night. And so that was one of my goals when I started this program, was to be able to bridge that gap. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot of this MSL program, is you're giving non-lawyers a legal education in fields that are directly applicable out there in the real world.
Yeah, that's good. So what advice would you give to other working professionals considering the online MSL program?
I guess my first thought is, don't be afraid of the program. If this is something that's exciting to you, go for it. That's what I did. And I'm so happy I did. But be smart about it. Think about how you're going to judge your time, use your time, and think about how it might affect, like I had to think about how is this going to affect my kids, right? They're teenagers, but they still need me. So, I had to think about how the decisions I made were going to affect them. And then if I was going to do it, how I was going to do it so I can manage my life and their lives. The other thing is money. When I first got in touch with Kat, one of my first questions was, are there scholarships available out there? Because I work and I have a salary, but my kids are going to college soon. And I don't want to use the college money that we're trying to save up for them. So there is, for example, that your first year in the MSL program, there is a Dean Scholarship that's available. There are certain criteria you have to meet to get it, but you should be aware that it's out there. And then there are other scholarships around depending on what you're going to be studying. I did get another external scholarship. And then I also got some, if you are in a job, and if your job might have tuition reimbursement, I have that in my job, but it's just it's a portion. It's dependent on the local university's credit costs, for example. So, but if you add all that up, it's helped me tremendously to get by. So just be aware of those kind of things if you're going to apply, and ask questions, reach out. And like I said, Kat and Clem and Professor Harder, they're all fantastic. So I've number of times I've gotten in touch with them, and literally later on that day, they'll get back to me and say, let's set up a time. And they're very willing to sit down and answer any questions you have. So don't be shy. That's my advice.
Yes, we don't want you to be shy. We like talking with everybody.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is, if you end up in the program, take advantage of your professors. They all have office hours every single week that you can do remotely, over Zoom, just like this. But they also are willing to set up extra times if that doesn't work for your schedule. And then, like I said, you have discussion assignments where you put your post online and then your classmates respond. And so there's opportunities to really get to know your classmates if you want. You don't have to. You can just post your thing and go your merry way. But my first year, I made 2 really great friends from the program, and I'm so glad I did. So there are opportunities to reach out to each other as well. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What are your future goals post-graduation, and how do you feel McGeorge's program is preparing you for them?
Well, my situation's a little different because I am kind of established in my career, but you're never too old to learn, obviously. And so I have noticed my boss now shuttles work to me that she never used to before. And I love it. The kinds of work that I get to do now, I'm getting to use what I've learned from school and apply it in my job and make a difference. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't, take that first step, gotten into the program, and then started talking about what I learned at work and applying it. And then over time, my boss and my coworkers got to see what I could, what I had to share and what I had to contribute. And that, in a way, has kind of allowed me to carve a little tiny niche in a field that I was really hoping to do that with. So that's been fantastic. And then for when I graduate, I'm probably not going anywhere for a while because my kids still have to grow up and get to college. But someday we might move or decide to do something different. And I think this career or this job, this education will allow me to kind of have additional opportunities for my career, things that I couldn't have done in the past with just the science degrees. So it's exciting to me at this age to still be discovering these new things that I can add to my life. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future once I graduate and I could move on and continue to grow. It's been really exciting.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much for answering all my questions, Nancy.
You're welcome.
And so Nancy's going to stick around. I'm just going to quickly go over a couple more things. And then we'll do a quick Q&A. I see somebody already posted something and we will get to that in just a couple minutes. So just real quickly, we have 3 fully online concentrations. Our business law concentration was launched this fall, so fall 2023. And then we also have our government law and policy and our water and environmental law that have been around for a little bit longer. Then we also have 2 hybrid concentrations where you're doing a little bit in person, a little bit online, depending on what you're looking for. And those are in human resources and health law. We also have the option available for you to not focus. You can just get a Master of Science in Law. And so that could also be hybrid. It could also be fully online if you choose to do just our online courses. So there's a little bit of flexibility with that one if you don't want to focus on one particular area. So Nancy talked a little bit about a lot of this, but I'm just going to quickly go over it, kind of what makes our MSL online distinctive. So as she mentioned, we do asynchronous lectures. So those are pre-recorded, which is what Nancy listens to in the car. So it gives you the flexibility to listen to your lectures when you have the time, which is, kind of great. You don't have to sign on at a specific time of day. You don't have to carve out a specific hour to go and sit and listen at a live Zoom lecture. I do know some professors host live sessions, but they're optional and they're always recorded. Interactive weekly discussions. So online programs, a major concern a lot of people have is that they're not going to get the interaction with their fellow classmates and their professors. This is not going to be the case here. If you actively participate and respond like you're encouraged to, there's a lot of interaction between you and your classmates and also the professor. They'll often respond to posts and go back and forth with the students. Ungraded quizzes. So professors do them is to test your knowledge, see where you're not doing so well, so you don't get to the end of the term, take your final, do your final project, and realize that you haven't quite got an important aspect of the course or whatever the case is. There's also chats. Some students, the professor will start like a separate section where you can ask questions and you can chat in there, and that gives you the opportunity to ask things that maybe weren't being discussed in class, but were discussed in your materials or something like that. Practical real world assignments. So as Nancy mentioned, a lot of our professors, pretty much all of our professors are actively practicing in their field. And so they give real world experience. They'll talk about something that's currently going on or that they're doing. I know there's one class where you basically do a bill from start to finish, which is kind of fun, and it's not something a lot of students get to do. And so it makes it more interesting than just reading about some 70-year-old case that is not totally relevant anymore. It's just the base of it is relevant. Regular feedback from professor. As I mentioned, they do actively participate in discussions. They also give feedback on assignments, whether they're ungraded or graded. And then they do have office hours where you can meet with them, or you can set up a time outside of their office hours to meet with them. And then collegial online learning community. As you heard, Nancy's made friends with some of her classmates despite it being online. We've had a lot of our students are local to Sacramento. They get together, they have met in person, or they meet over Zoom. So even though you're online, you're still, like, if you take it as an opportunity, you will get to meet some really cool people from some different backgrounds. Okay, so if you're interested in applying, our application is available. It is due December 1st if you want to start in January. We also have a fall start. The application will probably be due around July. And that link is also listed on the website, so you can access either one of them. Our January start, so as long as you have most of your materials in by December 1st, you will be able to be considered. Just let us know if you're waiting on like a letter of recommendation or something, and we can kind of put a hold and still review your application. Okay, so this is my contact information if you want to reach out to me. But now I will open it up to questions. I'm just reading the question that was posted. I don't think it's a question though. So somebody, Nancy, just so you know, said that you're so relatable and to thank you. Speaking, I think speaking to new tasks assigned because of your education and experience, what type of work you specifically mentioned, it's helped them understand. So,
Oh, cool.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions, you can post them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll give you guys a couple minutes, but otherwise we will let you guys get back to your day if you don't have any questions. Oh, I did want to just mention the scholarship. So yes, as Nancy mentioned, we do have a Dean's Merit Scholarship. It's up to $7,500. So when you submit your application, you really want to make sure that your resume is up to date because we look at leadership experience. And then we also take into consideration your GPA. So just make sure that your resume is, that it's up to date, any volunteer experience, any work experience, anything like that. And then as she mentioned, outside scholarships are a big resource for students. We try to keep a list of ones that might be available for particular majors. And then we let you guys know if we get any emails about ones that might be applicable. Okay, I have a question. If we graduated from McGeorge and took a few of the prereqs for environmental law, could those apply to the new program? I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Did you take MSL environmental law or did you take a JD? That's going to change my answer to the question. Does the school provide scholarship matches? It really depends. Those are very unique situations if you got a scholarship from one school. So that would be up to our committee. You could certainly let us know, and we might take that into consideration, but we don't typically grant over the $7,500. The JD course for environmental law. So if it depends on when you took it, I think there's a year limit on when you took the course for when it can be transferred, but we do transfer JD courses into the MSL program. We just don't go the other direction. 2008, that might be too old at this point, but I would have to check. I could get back to you on that and let you know. I want to say our limit is 10 years. It might be even less than that. Just going to write your name down so I remember to get back to you. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to let you guys get back to your day, as well as Nancy, because I'm sure she's got stuff to do.
Yeah, don't we all?
So thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy.
My pleasure.
And yeah, I hope you all have a great day.
Yeah, good luck.